In the early 2010s, a major scandal rocked Hungarian society, the Hungarian National Bank scandal.
Matolcsiék összesen több mint 266 milliárd forintot helyeztek el a Pallas Athénéről elnevezett alapítványokban. És hogy honnan volt ennyi pénze a jegybanknak?
Az ország kapott egy csomó hitelt az IMF-től, meg az EU-tól, ahhoz, hogy ne menjen csődbe 2008 után. Ez a devizatartalék ez ott állt az MNB-ben, és euróban volt. Matolcsy György és szövetségesei bekerültek az MNB-be, nagyon gyorsan elkezdtek kamatot vágni. És ennek eredményeként a forint gyorsan gyengülni kezdett. Na most ez a devizatartalék forintban egyre többet ért. Emiatt aztán a devizahitelek forintosításának eredményeként ki tudtak mutatni egy óriási nyereséget, és ez volt az a pénz, amiből aztán később el tudták indítani ezeket az alapítványokat.
The political backing and support for this scheme came from the Orbán government between 2014 and 2015. Laszlo Turcsányi, then Minister of Justice, laid the legal groundwork to ensure that the MNB could manage the billions gained from the loan conversion through its own foundations. Through amendments to the constitution and several laws, these foundations were stripped of their public fund status. Money was considered public only until it was transferred into the foundations.
Addig közpénz, amíg az alapító nem tette be az alapítványba a pénzt, és onnantól kezdve az alapítványi pénz és nem közpénz.
This legal loophole allowed over 500 billion forints of public money to end up in private hands. This financial misconduct not only harmed those affected by the foreign currency loan crisis, but also laid the foundation for the so-called housing mafia, which stripped hundreds of families of their homes. The European Court of Justice ruled that the loan conversion and related laws violated EU consumer protection directives, declaring the transfer of public funds into MNB foundations illegal, as it did not serve to assist those affected by the loan crisis. This scandal became the basis for the housing mafia, with a key figure, Norbert O., operating through various levels of authorities and judicial forums. His cases were often overseen at the appellate level by a judge known as the President of the National Judicial Council. While the media focuses on high-profile cases like the Szádol-Volner affair, stories like Norbert O.'s often overlooked. Yet, the victims and the procedures clearly expose the workings of a mafia state, from local courts to county officials. This film tells the story of an ordinary Hungarian family, Ferenc Darab and his wife, to illustrate systemic corruption, the ruthless operations of the housing mafia, and the trampling of the rule of law. It is a story of how a democracy quietly transforms into a dictatorship from within, legally, yet bypassing every rule. Caught in the Mafia'S Web. Ferenc Darab and his wife fell victim to the Miskolc housing mafia network. Their story is not just the tragedy of a single family, but a brutal reflection of today's Hungarian reality, where the police, prosecutors, bailiffs, and politicians collude to trample the rule of law. In their first film, Justice for Sale, we showed how their son Dean's house was illegally auctioned and his family evicted. Now, we uncover the ordeal of the parents, who became victims of the manipulated auction and looting of their home at 9 Fekska Street. The common thread in both cases is Norbert O., a key figure in the housing mafia who had already indicated during the seizure of Dean's house that he would take the family's other home as well. The nightmare continued in 2022 when the house at 9 Fekska Street was illegally auctioned. The entire foreclosure process related to the foreign currency loan debt was suspended by the court on April 19, 2023, because the debt had become time-barred, meaning the bailiff could not legally substantiate the claim. This foreclosure was based on a time-barred claim, which is illegal under the relevant section of the Civil Code, as time-barred claims cannot be enforced. Nevertheless, the Miskolc court and the bailiff rejected all of the family's motions, violating their right to a fair trial. The auction proceeded in a manipulated manner. The property was split into 2 parts to make it easier for insider companies to acquire it. This practice violates the foreclosure law, which mandates that auctions aim to achieve the highest possible price, not facilitate manipulated transfers of ownership. The first half was purchased for 9 million forints by Overcapital ZRT, led by Csaba L. Csaba LS Real Estate Company, Mediator Credit Limited, and Overcapital ZRT together handled the purchase of loan collaterals and the financing of buyers, keeping the entire process under their control. Csaba L acted as both auctioneer and buyer, which violates the Civil Code's principles of good faith and fair procedure due to a conflict of interest. At the auction for the second half, Szilard T., a young man from Debrecen, initially bid but withdrew after aggressive behavior from Csaba L. At this point, Gyulene N. Andrus, the mother of Victor N., a restaurant owner, stepped in and purchased the property on May 4, 2023, despite the foreclosure being suspended. This purchase violated foreclosure law, as a suspended foreclosure prohibits the sale of the property. Csaba LS system worked perfectly. Overcapital ZRT auctioned the property's Mediator Credit Limited, its 100% owner purchased them, and Invest Limited, led by Zoltán S., resold them. This system suggests organized fraud under the criminal code, as the auctions were manipulated in a coordinated manner for illegal profit. Zoltán S. repeatedly had litigation notes removed from the title deed at the land registry, a practice that violates the integrity of land registry procedures. Despite the family's warnings to financial institutions and authorities, the system protected the perpetrators at every level. On May 24, 2023, the family, now in England, faced a shocking reality. Their security camera live-streamed burglars climbing over the fence and breaking into their home at 9 Fech K Street. The footage showed two men, but their faces were unclear. The couple immediately alerted their neighbors, who called the Miskolc police. The police arrived but left without taking action after the burglars presented a sales contract. This police inaction violates the Criminal Procedure Code, as they were obligated to investigate the break-in. The burglars, including Zoltán S., knew they were being recorded and cut the electrical wires, disabled the circuit breaker, dismantled the camera system, and stole the indoor unit and Wi-Fi router, acts constituting theft and vandalism under the criminal code. The next day, May 25th, the property was advertised on Jofagas HU with the family's furniture. Invest Limited took interior photos, and Zoltán S. was identified in them by his watch. The police, specifically the Avasi precinct, failed to conduct a crime scene investigation, just as they had years earlier at 7 Fech K Street, violating the Criminal Procedure Code. The couple contacted the police by phone but received no assistance. The lock on the gate was cut the next day, and the house was looted for 5 days with the police's knowledge and presence, suggesting official misconduct under the criminal code.
Hát ezért akik pakolnak itt.
És ott van még a fekete Audi?
Négy van itt. Itt van a fekete autó.
Igen, ez a tetovált lábú nő.
Igen, ott vannak. Itt vannak. 4 nő összesen, meg a férfi.
A Samco.
Ugye holnap összetöri mindent, mert még a bíróság nem döntött. Addig övé minden, ezt mondtam az. Az emelettől dobálják le holmikat, valami fehér, meg szőnyeget, most is dobnak le valamit, meg itt ledobtak valamit. Most is egy összecsomagolt szagysot, meg így világosat, meg így sötétet, dobálják le, tehát el fogják vinni.
Valuable items, including books, stamp collections, silver cutlery, tapestries, and household appliances purchased for a planned renovation since 1987, were stolen. Tibor Arki, a Reformed church pastor and longtime family friend, played a key role in this story. In 2023, he messaged the family via Messenger, stating that movable property had been donated to the church due to an eviction, among which he found the family's diplomas. After the couple sent him the court order suspending the foreclosure, he halted the looting.
Egyszerűen nem tudom elhinni, hogy ilyen szabadrablás van, ilyen törvénytelenségek.
Így van, csak ugye attól sajnos nem tudjuk így megoldani, ha nem tudjuk megoldani, csak úgy ahogy az ő eszközeiket ellenük fordítva, az ő eszközeiket úgymond tisztességes módon felhasználva, csak annyi, hogy ne tűnjenek el dolgok, amik kellenének, amik fontosak lennének. Mert hiába állítunk oda 50 embert is, hogyha lenne ott, ha egyszer mindig újabb és újabb csapatok jönnek, és akkor pláne, hogyha ők valami csoporttal jönnek, tehát nem tud az ember ellenük így ezzel az eszközzel harcolni.
The pastor arrived at the house with an antique dealer who spent 2 days appraising the items and photographing family documents, books, and valuables. The dealer confirmed Zoltán SS presence but begged not to reveal his name, fearing the mafia would destroy his business. The prosecutor's office later ordered a crime scene investigation during which 54 photos were taken. However, the report omitted key witnesses, including Zsuzsa Fister, a legal expert from the Mi Hazánk movement, her husband, an insurance expert, and a police representative, violating the principle of a fair trial. The silver cutlery was later returned to the house to cover up the theft, raising suspicions of aiding and abetting under the criminal code. The family's neighbor, Laszlo V., a politician and deputy leader of the local MSZP party, witnessed the break-ins but did not intervene, raising suspicions of dereliction of duty. Another neighbor, who had previously behaved hostile towards the Darab family, later warned them when trucks arrived at the house. The police did nothing. The family filed a police report. Victor N. blackmailed them, offering to return their belongings only if they withdrew the report. The police leaked to him that the report remained active, violating the criminal code's provisions on official secrecy. A fence, identified on Facebook as a Sajko, claimed the prosecutor's office had fixed the case, raising suspicions of aiding and abetting and official misconduct.
Nagyon nagy veszteség fogja érni vagy a tulajdonos, mondjuk azt, hogy tulajdonos. Semmi köze nem azt mondta. Hiába lesz tárgyalása. Ez az idéző, most a színjáték beleszégezve, ezzel hivatalos bírósági végzés lesz arról, hogy neki semmi köze nincs, ezt megvették hivatalosan. Júniusban letelt a 30 napos, hogy kikapoljon. Majd a bíróság fog dönteni olyan szinten, hogy nyugodjon bele, hogy nem, hogy még tapolszal is ki fogják. A bírósági végzés döntés lesz afelől, hogy ők minden már kisztőnek jelentve, ezt eladták. Nem a városi bíróság, hanem a megyei bíróság tárgyalni. Konténert hivatott. Két napig itt lesz vele tovább minden. Ha tovább is minden jót, figyeljenek magukra. Viszlát. Hallottad?
Igen, hallottam.
Ahol?
Itt vagyok, hallottam.
Na, holnap. Konténert hozzá. Hogy a törvényszéken el van intézve. Jó, mi?
Hát ez a félelemkeltésnek egy formája.
In September 2023, Ferenc livestreamed on Facebook as the police watched thieves load the family's belongings onto a truck. Chasing the thieves by car, honking, and trying to stop them, Ferenc was stopped by the police, who breathalyzed him and took him for a blood test on suspicion of drunk driving, allowing the thieves to escape. This police action violated the Criminal Procedure Code by harassing the victim instead of investigating the theft. The police found Ferenc guilty of drunk driving, revoked his license, and fined him 270,000 forints. Ferenc learned from an insider that some of the stolen items were taken to the Avasi police commander, but this allegation was ignored. The police's failure to investigate the theft violated the Criminal Procedure Code. The family turned to the Commissioner for Fundamental Rights, Miklos Santo, who recorded their complaint. The report was prepared by a woman who was a former schoolmate of ex-Justice Minister Judith Varga, which the family cited as a conflict of interest under the Criminal Procedure Code. The police rejected the Commissioner's resolution and closed the case. At court hearings, Ferenc spoke out in the presence of the media, but the police failed to appear as witnesses, violating the principle of a fair trial. A lawyer and a well-known law firm advised the family to accept the fine, as fighting the system was hopeless. Dean's story, as shown in Justice for Sale, further illustrates the mafia state's operations. The two cases in Miskolc connect to numerous other incidents, with Norbert O as the central figure exposing the network. Norbert O holds 6 fictitious residence cards, though a Miskolc government office employee stated he has only one legitimate address. Attila Kovacs, another victim of Norbert O, is still awaiting a response from the Ministry of Energy to substantiate his claims, as the residence registry was transferred to the ministry's jurisdiction in 2023. The use of fictitious addresses raises suspicions of document forgery under the criminal code. Court records show that Norbert O.'s cases were often overseen at the appellate level by Csaba Peksany, president of the National Judicial Council, frequently resulting in favorable rulings for the defendant or his family. Norbert O.'s sister, Dr. Cynthia O., who worked at the Foreign Ministry and had ties to certain political figures, received several letters on Norbert's behalf, and several of his companies were registered at her address. Gabor S., another victim of Norbert O., personally approached a political representative who admitted knowing about Norbert's cases but claimed they were outside his jurisdiction. The family's friend, Dr. Csaba Burke, assisted in reviewing documents but was reportedly threatened. The neighbor who held their keys was allegedly intimidated by Norbert O., which the family considers blackmail under the criminal code. The family is doing everything in its power to bring the truth to light. Although the court suspended the foreclosure based on their statute of limitations motion, it failed to locate its own documents. The bailiff submitted unnumbered documents, violating foreclosure law, which requires document authenticity. Victor N. quickly sold the illegally acquired property, despite the fact that possession was never legally transferred. Within a single year, the property changed hands 5 times, each transfer further deepening the chain of legal violations. The evidence, including audio recordings, photos, and videos, is available on Facebook, YouTube, and the family's foreign server to prevent censorship. While the media chases the Schadl-Wollner affair, Norbert O., a convicted criminal with a suspended sentence, continues his activities undisturbed with his family's assistance. This story is not fiction, but the reality of today's Hungary. A mafia state operating from the police to the land registry to the political sphere, consistently trampling the rule of law.